Hello, welcome to Assistive Technology Implementation. My name is Jerry Schaefer, and I'm an educational consultant with the Capital Area Intermediate Unit in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My colleague, Shauna Montgomery, and I have developed the following module as part of the Tier 2 Assistive Technology process. This process was designed to build capacity in assistive technology within local school districts and cooperating agencies. Each module is designed to provide information about best practice in AT. If you have watched the Tier 2 videos in order, you will have learned about the important components of the Tier 2 AT cycle. We've talked about having a prompt hierarchy in your classroom with clear instructions for reinforcing and fading communicated to all staff. Then we talked about the importance of active engagement and how to motivate your students to use AT. We explored different access methods for your classroom curriculum and communication. Then we looked at the feature matching and using the SET framework to guide decisions about tool choice. At this point, we are hoping you have thought about the tools you can find inside your classroom that helps support all students and can add extra support to specific groups of students. For example, those students who may need a communication device. Now that you can identify some useful tools you already have or that you might want to purchase, we need to talk about the implementation process. After all, having the tools available for students to use is only the first step. Now we need to facilitate opportunities for students to use them in your environment during a variety of different tasks. Before we begin, I want to point out that this graphic shows a cycle, and that's purposeful. We want to continue assessing and reassessing these areas. Not only will your AT strategies and tools need updating, but your students will change, and as they move in and out of your district, you'll need to look at different areas. AT is not a once and done process. It's a continuous cycle. Let's talk about the implementation of AT. Here are two questions we ask ourselves when we begin implementation. How do we provide opportunities to use AT, and how do we make sure AT is effective? Both questions are designed to be answered by a team, not just the teacher, not just the SLP, not just the OT, the whole team. As we talked about before, we need to start with a plan. Making opportunities to use assistive technology can be difficult at first. You might think you can do this on the fly or in the moment. I don't suggest you go down that route. Have a well-constructed plan. It'll be so much easier, and it will allow you to incorporate the UDL principles. Keep it simple, one thing at a time, and make connections. The easiest way to get started is to break down your school day. I've provided an example in this slide, but obviously every classroom is different, so you'll want to think about your own school day. But make sure you think about it from the time students are getting off the bus and coming into the classroom to the time they are leaving the classroom and getting back on the bus. And don't forget transitions and specials or unscheduled activities like assemblies. In a previous module, we practiced collecting information about student needs, environmental considerations, and tasks. You can combine these elements and design a plan for your school schedule. We've put an example on this slide, and you can find a copy of it in the materials provided. And a copy of the Word document is also included in case you want to modify this plan. Just a quick look at what we mean by breaking down your school day and using the SET framework. In this example, we're breaking down the day according to time, beginning with getting off the bus. As you can read, 6 students get off the bus at 8 o'clock. We broke down the tasks and environment. Under each heading is the question, what's needed? This is where you would put any specialized tools or instructions that students may need. Things listed here are core vocabulary lanyards, so adults can model a greeting as the student gets off the bus. On the back of the lanyards are visual directions for the student who might need that type of support. Please take time to read through this example in the materials provided. Here's a second page that continues the student's day. Now all the students need to enter the classroom and put away jackets and book bags and get seated. There are some special instructions and everything is laid out for adults. This type of plan is important because it helps all the adults in the room understand their role at each part of the day. Also, it can help us identify the needed AT and the opportunities to use AT. Once your day is broken down, you can identify the opportunities to use AT. Here's an easy way to remember how AT can support your student and give them an all-access pass to your classroom and your curriculum. PASS stands for participation, accessibility, social inclusion, and self-reliance or advocacy. This protocol was designed to keep track of how AT is being used and if it's being effective. The protocol provides some guiding questions for each of the 4 areas. Participation brings the active engagement piece as well as the principles of universal design for learning. Accessibility, as we discussed in the access module, means physical and academic access to all classroom materials, AT, and curriculum. It incorporates the AIM principles as well. The social inclusion piece reminds us that peer interactions are essential. Students also need to interact with adults, and they need individual interactions as well as opportunities to interact in groups. Often, our students need explicit teaching in the area of social skills, like learning how to take turns and being flexible and listening to others. A quick note, the slide says social integration, and that has changed to social inclusion. We had a training with Shelley Moore this summer, and she schooled us on the difference between the word integration and inclusion when we felt like inclusion was a better word, but the slide still says integration. Last on the list is self-reliance. Obviously, we want students to be as independent as possible, and that means looking at the task and trying to find ways for students to complete it without help. However, we know that some students need significant support. For example, our students with complex bodies may never be able to do a task without adult help. In these cases, those students need to learn to advocate for themselves. They may need to direct adults for the rest of their lives, so it's important that they learn how to do it and that adults don't take over the role and leave them in a pattern of learned helplessness. The important thing to remember with the All Access Pass protocol is that it's designed to make sure we are implementing ATs in ways that impact the student. If there's an area missing when you complete this protocol, then make an action plan and try to address the missing pieces. As part of the Tier 2 process, we want you to be thinking about what you already have in your classrooms to support assistive technology use. And here's some things you could be looking for. First, we'll start with academic tools. Focus on things that are free and easily accessible so that all students can use them. This will allow you to see who benefits from which types of tools. Then look at the accessibility features. All operating systems have built-in assistive technology, but they need to be enabled. Tools like text-to-speech, speech-to-text, word prediction, magnification, etc. Then there's open source materials. There are materials available that are not only accessible, like in a digital format that can be used with reading software, but that also have AT built in, such as ReadWorks. Some open source materials offer leveled text, so you can have students accessing the same content at different reading levels. Don't forget about free apps and extensions. There are tons of free apps and extensions that support students with AT needs. Apps like Story Creator that will allow you to import pictures, add text, and record audio so that you can create accessible books. G Suite has helpful add-ons with apps, and You can add extensions to the Chrome browser to increase functionality and support specific needs. Math Learning Center offers free web-based virtual manipulatives for math. If you want to learn more about apps and extensions, Shauna Montgomery usually does a training that you can find on our website. She does one, usually once a year, sometimes twice, so you can look there too. Tools for executive functioning are also easy to use as Tier 1 and 2 interventions. Look for practical ways to help students with organization, memory, flexible thinking, or time management. Last, we can touch on some communication tools. Here are some easy ways to incorporate tools in your classroom. There's modeling of communication turn-taking using visuals. You can have core vocabulary boards for everyone in the class, including adults. You can have single message devices for any student who needs to gain attention or otherwise doesn't have a device. Single message devices throughout the room to support transitions and activities. Sequencers with directions to a task. You can also use voice output devices such as a GoTalk with fringe vocabulary and directions. I put a list of things you can do with single switch devices and sequencers in your Tier 2 live binder, so you can find that information there. Very quickly, I wanted to mention that good data can be collected at Tier 1 and Tier 2 levels. There are a couple things to keep in mind. Make sure you get some baseline data before you start using the tool, so you can see if the tool is making a difference. You want to make sure that you have some explicit instruction of the tool, and then make sure your data collection, you use some data collection with the tool. That way you can determine effectiveness. Does something need to be adjusted? Does the tool access need to be adjusted, or does the difficulty of the task need to be adjusted? Or is there a better tool? A couple of last thoughts on implementation of assistive technology. Make sure you communicate clear expectations for students and adults working with them. Make instructions simple and easy to follow. Keep active engagement strategies in mind. What works best for the task and for the student. Make activities and tasks motivating. Our students tend to lose interest quickly, and they need novelty and adults who will model the excitement to learn. And lastly, be careful what you are collecting data on. Are you measuring the correct outcomes? Is it the tool use or the cognitive demands of the task that is giving the student difficulty? And make sure you are separating these discrete skills so that the data is reflective of the student's true capabilities. So to summarize this module, implementation of AT is part of a larger AT cycle. It's a team approach, and it starts with a plan and breaking down your school day. You can check effectiveness by using the All Access Pass protocol. You put tools into your classroom that everyone can use, and make sure you take data. Oh, and lastly, and most importantly, have fun. So that's the overall idea of implementation of AT. Sounds pretty easy. I think you can do it. Good luck. Thank you for taking the time to complete the Tier 2 module implementation of assistive technology. Please remember to complete the reflection questions and review the extra materials provided. If you have any questions about this module or you'd like to discuss your role in the AT process, please feel free to email or call us. This is our web address, and you can find our contact information on it. Please remember that AT consultants are available for in-person training and consultation with your team.